Some moments slip into your life so quietly, you don't realize they've changed you until much later. Sometimes, it's a look. Sometimes, it's a question. And sometimes, it's as simple as someone asking for help with their belt. That night, I thought it was nothing. I thought it was innocent. But looking back, that was the moment everything began to unravel. The kitchen was wrapped in the soft glow of twilight, the kind that slows time and makes the air feel heavier, as though the world itself is holding its breath. Rachel stood at the sink, her hands in warm soapy water long after the dishes had been scrubbed clean. She wasn't really washing anymore, she was holding on to the repetitive motion, as if the circles her fingers traced on the porcelain plates could anchor her to something solid. Outside, the sky was bruised with deep purples and fading blues, pressing against the window. The low hum of the dishwasher filled the room, a mechanical heartbeat that kept her from hearing the silence that had been growing louder in her life. It wasn't a comfortable silence anymore, it was heavy, the kind that seeps into your bones until it feels permanent. Her husband, Mark, was in the living room, the glow of the television flickering across his face. They hadn't really talked in hours. If she was honest with herself, they hadn't truly talked in years. Their marriage hadn't ended in screaming matches or betrayal, it had just faded. Like a photograph left in the sun too long, the colors of what they once were washed away until there was barely anything left. Rachel was 42, but most days she felt older. She remembered when silence between her and Mark had been something safe, something intimate, like the shared warmth of a blanket on a winter night. But as the years passed, his career swallowed his time, his late nights at the office stretching into weekends. She filled her own time with errands, work, and distractions, anything to avoid the echo of emptiness. The sound of footsteps broke her thoughts. "Hey, Ratch," a warm, hesitant voice called from the doorway. She turned, dish towel in hand, and saw Chris standing there. At 23, he'd grown taller since she'd last really noticed him, his dark hair a little tousled, a sheepish grin tugging at his lips. Chris was Mark's son from his first marriage, her stepson. And for a moment, his presence felt unfamiliar, like sunlight suddenly breaking through overcast skies. "What's up?" she asked, trying to sound casual. He held up a leather belt, the buckle twisted at an odd angle. I think I broke this. Can you help?" Rachel smirked. "You're a grown man, Chris. You can't fix your own belt." He chuckled, stepping closer. "Laugh it up." "I tried, it's jammed. Guess I'm hopeless." She reached for it, and when their fingers brushed, something sharp and unexpected jolted through her. She tried to ignore it, focusing on the stubborn buckle while he hovered nearby. She could feel him there, warm, close, smelling faintly of cologne and soap. With a sudden snap, the buckle gave way, and Chris's jeans slipped slightly, revealing just a sliver of skin above his waistband. He caught them quickly with a laugh, but Rachel's eyes lingered a moment too long before she forced them back to his face. "Guess it's beyond saving," she murmured, her voice tighter than she meant. He nodded, fastening it again. For a moment, neither of them moved. The air between them felt charged, the kind of stillness that comes before a summer storm. Chris held her gaze for a beat longer than necessary before walking toward the hallway. Rachel watched him go, her pulse thudding in her ears. That night, she lay in bed beside Mark, his back turned as always. His snores filled the room, but it was Chris's grin, his nearness, that kept replaying in her mind. Days passed in a strange blur, routine laced with tension she didn't want to acknowledge. She told herself she was imagining it, the way his eyes lingered, the softness in his tone when he spoke to her. But boundaries have a way of blurring when someone steps close, and Chris was stepping. It was the night of the storm when everything changed. Mark was away at a conference, one of those trips he no longer asked her to join. The sky outside was heavy, the air thick with the scent of coming rain. Rachel curled up on the couch with a blanket and a book she wasn't reading. Footsteps approached, then the soft clink of ceramic. "I made tea," Chris said, walking in with 2 steaming mugs. "You didn't have to," she replied, taking the cup. Their fingers brushed again, and that same quiet electricity passed between them. He sat beside her, close, not across the room. The storm outside cracked open with a violent clap of thunder, and she flinched. "Not a fan of storms?" he asked. It's not the storm, she murmured. It's the silence. Chris's gaze didn't waver. Is it the house that's quiet, or you? The question caught her off guard. She looked at him, truly looked, and realized he was seeing her in a way Mark hadn't in years. Without speaking, she lifted the edge of the blanket. Chris hesitated, then slid underneath it beside her. Their shoulders touched. Lightning flashed, and in that brief burst of light, she caught the steadiness in his eyes. His hand rose, slowly, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "This is wrong," she whispered. "Then tell me to stop," he said softly. But she didn't. The kiss started slow, testing, hesitant. Then years of unspoken loneliness broke free, and it deepened. His hands rested at her waist, her fingers curled into his shirt. The storm outside raged, but the only thing she felt was the heat of him, the rush of her own heartbeat. When they finally broke apart, breathless, the air was heavy with something unspoken. "I don't know what this means," she admitted. "Then let's figure it out together," Chris said, his voice steady. But Rachel knew nothing about this was simple. She had a husband. He was her stepson. And yet, she couldn't deny the truth, someone had finally seen her again. The next morning, the silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was heavy with consequence and possibility.